Okay, it's a race from P to Q, and from P to Q, it's 108 yards between them. All right, so let me kind of draw a picture of this, and P, Q, like this over here, and it's 108 yards between them. And what's happening? A and B run a race from P to Q, but then back. And what does it say? It says in the first heat, so the first race, it says this over here. It says A reaches Q and meets B on the return at the point 12 yards from Q. So what does it mean? A does this. He runs, he hits Q, and he starts heading back. All right? Now he's meeting B there, so that means B went this distance over here. So I'm going to talk about the distance first, and then we'll talk about the race and the times and things like that. So the distance that A goes, this is the distance A goes, would be 108 plus 12, right? So it gets, he did the 108, but then runs back 12, so that's 120, right? Yards, all right? Let's talk about the distance that B ran in this race. All right, when they met, by the way. It shouldn't say in the race, when they met. And the distance would be, well, it's 108 minus 12, so 96. All right? That's not bad. That's the first race. All right? But then they start talking about if they increase their rates. So what I got to understand is that they're rate problems now. By the way, this is yards. All right, and this occurred at the same time. So A did 120 yards in the same amount of time that B did 96 yards. So I'm going to say this is something to do with distance equals the rate times the time. So let's put this over here. So I'm going to talk about, just in the first part of the race. So I'm going to talk about 120 divided by the rate of A. So I got to write this down now. So I'm going to say A is A's rate. Now, since they're talking about yards and seconds, I'm going to say yards per second. So the time would be 120, this is for A, divided by A. But again, B's given the same amount of time to do this, and what does he do? B does 96. Now, I'm going to say B is B's rate in yards per second. All right? So that's going to be B over here. I got something pretty easy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to reduce it a little tiny bit. And then I'm going to start to make erasures and start talking about the second part of the race. All right? So 60 over A. And let's see, what would you get? 48 over B. And let's see, 12, right? So 5, I'm dividing by 12, by the way, over A would be 4 over B. So I have a pretty simple relationship up here. I'll write this down. So 5B equals 4A. I'm going to say it's a pretty simple relationship by reading just the first part of the problem. Let me get my eraser out. I'm kind of done talking about the first part. And now let's talk about the second part, the second race. Again, A still represents the rate of A in yards per second, and B still represents the rate of B in yards per second. But now in the second race, right, what happens? Well, if you read through it, it's really a very similar story, but it goes on to say that in the second race, A increases speed by 2 yards per second. So his rate would be, A's rate would be A plus 2. Right, he's increasing it by 2 yards per second. And B's rate's being increased by 1. All right? But it goes on to say that A meets B 18 yards from Q. All right? So let me read this again. The second heat, A increases speed by 2 yards a second and B by 1 yard a second. And now A meets B 18 yards from Q. So the distance over here for this guy here is going to be 108 plus 18. What's that going to be? Let's take a look. That's going to be 126, right? And the distance, this is the distance for A, by the way. The distance for B, well, it's like the other story, right? It's going to be 108 minus 18, which is, it's 18, right? Yeah. So it's going to be 90. And again, it's 90 yards. It's happening at the same time, by the way. I don't know the time, but it's happening at the same time. So I got the same relationship. What's it going to be? Distance, 126, over his rate, which is A plus 2, is going to take the same amount of time for this guy here to do 90 divided by B plus 1. All right, I'm going to do, I guess I should probably simplify. And let me just see if I can do that. 63 over A plus 2 equals 45 over B plus 1. Well, I'm going to divide by 3. 21 over A plus 2 equals 15 over B plus 1. Well, I can go further. 7 over A plus 2 equals 5 B plus 1. Well, let me write this down then. So it's going to be 7B plus 7 equals 5A plus 10. All right. I'm going to simplify a little bit further. And what do you get? 7B minus 5A equals 3. This is another important fact. I'm getting that from the second reading, the second race. Let me get my erase out. I'm kind of done with all this stuff over here now. Done talking about it too. And I want to move forward. And I want to figure out A and B, right? To do that, I got to make a substitution. And there's many ways to do it. Maybe not a substitution. Maybe I should do an elimination. And let me write this down for you. 4A minus 5B is equal to 0. And let's see, minus 5A plus 7B. Did I do that okay? Yeah, I think so. Equals 3. I can multiply the top equation by 4 and the bottom equation by 5. And what do you get? Let's take a look. I'm sorry. Made a mistake. I just noticed. I know I want to use those numbers. I just got them in the wrong spot. So I got to start again. Top equation by 5, bottom equation by 4. What do you get there? 20A minus 25B equals 0, minus 20A, that's the whole point of it, plus 28B equals 12. Let's see how I did there. 20A minus 20, yeah, it looks pretty good. Minus 20, 28, yep, pretty good. Add it together. And what do you get? Let's take a look. You would get 3B is 12, or B is 4. So what would it mean? B's rate is going to be 4 yards per second. All right? I want to figure out what A is, though. And what's A? Well, if you look at it, I would probably plug it in here because it's easy to do. So 5 times 4 is 20, so A would have to be 5. So A's rate is 5 yards per second. All right, let's look at the key and see what they said. And they say A can run 5 yards in 1 second, 5 yards per second, and B can do 4 yards. We did pretty good. You know, I was expecting to get more difficult problems towards the end, but 14, I'm going to say, was easy. It was not difficult, all right? Again, your mileage may vary, understand what you've read, possibly difficult. So again, what one person says is easy, the other person finds difficult, and vice versa. Don't be discouraged if you're having trouble, though. Most people do. Thank you.